Hi guys, greetings from Bulgaria. Today is time for another video. Um, Let me share my screen. Today I'm going to present to you a few patterns. And of course, we're going to talk about, one of the most famous patterns in automated testing, the page object design pattern. In my book, Design Patterns about in Automated Testing, um, I describe it at least 10 variations of this pattern, and it's quite important. And today I'm going to show you how to integrate it in your NUnit tests. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Lambda test channel. Always, each week, there are really great videos. And also, don't forget that in the description below, you will find also many different articles and resources, and also the source code that I'm going to show you. So without further ado, first let's discuss the use case, because this time I'm going to use another example, because I want to show you a little bit more complex stuff. Let's agree I created this demo website for the purposes of the book. So it's a simple shopping cart. You can buy stuff, in this case rockets. So you can buy a rocket. As you can see there, these spinners, this meaning that this is an asynchronous request using Ajax without reloading the whole page. Then you can go to view cart, like standard stuff, right? You can update the quantity in the cart. You can apply a coupon. Usually we check that the coupon was applied, and also that we have a taxes and the total is right. And then we'll continue with the workflow where you need to put all of the information here. Again, there will be different test cases where we're checking the different countries, different taxes, etc. We need to verify the information here. Maybe we need to create an account or login with it and place the order. This is our test case. And I already implemented it without using any patterns, so that you can see it. I'm using here NUnit. For the NUnit project, you need only a few dependencies, a few NuGet packages. You need NUnit test adapter, so that you'll be able to see the tests here in Test Explorer and Visual Studio. We are installing, we're downloading all of the needed drivers with the WebDriver Manager, of course, Selenium WebDriver. This Microsoft.NET Test SDK comes with all of the empty unit testing projects in Visual Studio. And we need .NET Selenium extras. Again, if you don't know how to set it up, there are a few Lambda test videos on the channel that will help you to figure this out. Next, I created this test class where in the constructor, or also you can do it in test initialize method, we're downloading the driver to the driver manager. We're initializing a Chrome and a WebDriver wait. And this is our test here. I created a few private methods just to group, in case you want to multiply the test case a few times with different data. For now, I just move them to private methods inside the class. How we increase the quantity. The most important stuff are that in order to handle some asynchronous issues, we are using the WebDriver wait in this expected conditions element to exist, to wait for particular element to exist on the page or not. And I'm doing it, and basically I'm using this method instead of every time to call driver.findElement, right? It's working quite efficiently. And then I have, in order to remove all the hard-coded pauses, I have two other private methods, wait for Ajax, where basically using the same logic for the WebDriver wait, I'm executing my custom logic where we're executing in this while loop this particular JavaScript where we're waiting for all of the AJAX requests to finish. In this case, we're using jQuery. And the same thing for the wait until page loads completely. We're checking the status of the document to be complete. And afterwards, as I said, I created these private methods to group the logic of the test and to make it a little bit shorter above. And I've hard-coded all of the locators. As you can see, it's a little bit long, and it's not quite reusable, right? If you want to multiply this test case and change the data or locator, you need to copy-paste it. Basic WebDriver stuff. We are finding elements, we are clicking them. Again, we are using these two private methods to handle asynchronous issues. And basically, that's it. Now, in order to use the page object pattern, what does it represent? Basically, for each page of this workflow, the home page, the cart page, you can orient yourself from the URL here. We can have a separate class. This class will contain all of the elements with their locators. It will contain all of the different actions that you can perform, for example, increasing the quality and clicking update. Also, in some cases, you can put assertions verifying this price here. It's up to you whether to put these assertions inside the page object or not. Sometimes I prefer to put it because otherwise, especially if you're going to reuse this method on more than one place. Also, if you have some custom exception messages, it will be good to reuse them, right? And also, we can have one more page object for these billing details where instead of having one action method with, for example, 15 parameters, I'm going to show you how is the best way to do it using the so-called POC objects, or basically this is a class that contains all of the data that you need. So let's begin. This time I'm not going to code live since I want to cover a lot of stuff. So I'm going to show you three different versions of the page object pattern. One of them is using three separate files for each page object. First, as you can see, I created here a folder pages. And then for each page, I have a folder with a separate namespace. For the main page, as you can see, we have three files. We have the main page file where this contains all of the actions that we can do, pick a rocket, add it to the cart, whatever, the assertions, and the element map. The element map is basically the properties and the locators of your elements. Then we have one base class for all of the pages. Just a short notice, I'm not using the built-in page objects. My idea is to show you how to do it yourself. More or less, even the project on GitHub for C# haven't been maintained for a while. So I suggest you to try to use your own page objects. So I created here this abstract class. I call it webpage. This will be the base class for all of page objects. And here in the constructor, I'm passing the driver, and we are initializing the WebDriver wait. Also, as you can see, as an abstract, we have a property to the URL, only with getter, and we have a goto method that first navigates to the page and then calls wait for page to load. As you can see, this is an empty virtual method. Basically, if you don't override it, it will do nothing. But in case you want to, for some reason, wait for a particular element to appear, for example, this may mean that if this field has been loaded, this means that your page has been loaded. So sometimes we want here, before doing any actions, to wait for a particular element to appear on the page. And by the way, this is called a template design pattern. It's another tiny pattern that we're going to use here, combined with the page objects. And then, as you can see here in the base page, I moved these three important methods: the wait and find element, the wait for Ajax, and wait until page loads completely. And let's review what we have. First, we have the main page. The main page derives from this base web page, and we call its constructor and pass the driver through here. And also we have two properties to the map and to the assertions. This means that, again, the map contains properties to all of the elements that you can interact with, and the assertions contains the assertion methods. We are overriding the URL and provide the base URL for the page. And then here we have only one public action, add rocket to the shopping cart with the particular name. And as you can see, we are using the map to get the elements and interact with them. In this case, clicking and so forth, or typing the text. And here, as you can see, I'm using the template method. I'm overriding it. You cannot access it outside of the page because it's protected. And we're waiting for basically this particular part of the screen to appear. And the map, as you can see, it derives from the base map. And all of the elements are marked as get properties. This is the new body expression syntax, but this is similar to, let me show you. This is similar to this. This is just a get property, or in Java, a get method, right? Every time it's waiting for the element to appear and then we return it. This is quite efficient. Don't think that we need to cache it somehow or whatever. It's fast enough. And the base map is nothing more than, again, just a constructor exposing the wait and find element. As you can see, there is a little bit duplication between this base map and the web page. In the second variation, I will show you how we can fix this. And we do the same for the cart page and the checkout. The cart page, again, contains only the actions. As you can see here, there is a little bit repetition. We can, and through the book, I'm showing how basically we can reuse this using generic base classes. However, I suggest you to keep it simple upfront and later make it a little bit more complex. But again, in version 2, actually, we will work around this with a more elegant approach. And here again, we have the apply coupon action, increasing quantity method, proceed to checkout, get total, and so forth. And again, we are using the template method. The map again contains only the different locators. The good part about the element maps is that if for some reason there is a change in the locators, you need to go only here and fix it, right? Only in a single place, and this will fix your problem. The same for the assertions. Here, we can add custom exception. As you can see, we have arguments, and we can have, as you can see, a message. This message will be displayed a much better exception than just 1 is not equal to 1, right? But again, if you are going just to check it once, maybe it's fine to put it into the test. This is why there are different opinions in the industry about it. I prefer to have this assertion class. But if it's empty, for example, if you don't have assertions, you're not allowed. Basically, you can delete this and don't expose the property. It's up to you. And one more thing, as I said, the checkout page is interesting. Again, the map only contains the different elements on the page. There is one interesting thing that not all of the elements sometimes are not properties. And this is only the case when you need to build dynamically some of the locators like this here. We are picking the drop-down option based on the country name. And in this case, we are using a method, and this is completely fine to be in the map because it's returning an element. We are building dynamically the XPath or the CSS, and we return the element. And by the way, in these cases, you can use, again, help of the Visual Studio to refactor it, and you can use, again, the expression body syntax. However, I prefer, for readability purposes, my methods to be, even when it's a single line, to keep them like this here with the brackets, right? On multiple lines. And then only the properties to be on a single line. And the next thing, as I said, instead of passing here, like having 10 arguments, you will see that I created, as I said, a data object holding all of the information that I need to fill into these fields. I named it purchase info. This purchase info basically represents the information that I put into the billing. First name, last name, company, address, whatever, all of that, and also some meta information, whether I should create an account or should check the payment. And as you can see here, we have only one argument, the purchase info. Again, the map and the assertions are initialized in the constructor, and we're exposing them publicly. It's up to you whether to expose the map or not. Sometimes there are people that prefer all of the elements to be private. In this case, you can have the map as a private variable here. And afterwards, as you can see from the map, we are getting the different properties for the elements, and we're just typing the text, and based on the meta information, we're checking whether we want an account or not. And again, because of we're deriving from the web page, we have access to wait for Ajax, wait for page to load completely. And let's see how our test is looking now. Our web pages are here. We are using them through composition. Composition is again a pattern that we are not deriving something from a base class. Instead, we're having them here as private variables, and we initialize them inside the class initialize, test initialize, in the constructor, whatever. We are just passing the driver, right? And then the only thing, as you can see, we created, I use sometimes the term DSL or domain-specific language, which makes the tests much more readable and maintainable, meaning that you understand on which particular page you are at this particular line and what action you are doing. And it's becoming something like sentences, right? You're applying a coupon, you're doing an assertion, you're increasing the quantity. It's much more readable compared to the weird syntax where you see all of the details, right? And then, as I said, the only thing that you need for filling the billing information is to supply this purchase info object. And if you want a different test case, you need just to change the data here. It's completely abstract, which is great. Now let's focus on the second version. The second version workarounds the problem with the base map and all of these repetitions of properties. We implement this using partial classes. Partial classes are a feature of C# where you can have 3 different files with different names, but actually they have the same class name, but they are marked as partial, meaning that when you build a project, these 3 files will be combined in the same class, which is really great because now we don't need a base map because everything is a single page. Here we have similar web page. I haven't changed anything, but here, as you can see, our pages are much shorter. Don't have these properties to the map and the assertions. The only thing that we need is to mark them as partial, and that's it. This is the only change. If you look into the test, they look similar, right? We are initializing here the pages. The test is absolutely the same. Also, keep in mind, since in the constructor we're supplying the driver, if you want to execute your test in the cloud, in the Lambda test cloud, this is the place where you want to initialize all the capabilities of the cloud, etc. Right? Just you need to replace this code here with the code for Lambda setup. Here we are getting from environmental variables the user key and the access key, and instead of ROM driver, we're using the remote web driver, passing the formatted URI. And also here you can configure what is the platform, the browser version, browser, etc. All that. And one quick look into a third option for page objects. Here I implemented them as static pages instead of initializing them every time. In order to be able to support that, I created additional class. It's called driver facade. Here we're implementing another pattern. It's called a factory method. Basically, you can think of it as here we're initializing the drivers based on an option. This browser type is basically a enumeration with the different browsers. And into a driver facade, we're initializing the driver and also the WebDriver weight, and we're maximizing the browser. Also, again, if you're using Lambda test, you need to configure here all the different arguments. And we're exposing a static properties, the driver and the WebDriver weight. And I marked basically I moved all of the methods that we had previously in the base web page here, and I marked them as static. That's it. I had to change a little bit the goto method. Right now, we need to pass here the URL and to pass the weight for page load as an action. This is functional programming. This is basically a delegate to anonymous method for waiting for the page. In a minute, we'll see how I implemented it. Basically, the main page is just this. It's marked, again, as static and partial. All of the methods are partial. And here I created additional goto method where I'm calling the driver facade goto, the URL that I had before. And I moved all of the logic for waiting for the elements here. As you can see, since we don't have any more base class, I need to call the static driver facade wait and find element. And we are waiting for this particular div there, right? All of the map, again, all the elements here are static. This is, again, the same class, but in a different file. And again, we don't have a base class. This is why I'm calling the driver facade wait and find element. The same for the assertions. Directly, these are static, so I can call them because this is the same class. And I did the same for all of the pages. All of the methods are static. I'm using everywhere the driver facade directly as static. And here is the change. No more private variables. I only started initialize the driver from this static start method, mentioning that it's ROM. Again, if you're going to run them in the cloud, you need to put the logic here, depending on the environment. And afterwards, I don't need to pass and initialize the different pages because they're using the static facade, right? They have a static access to the driver. Keep in mind that if you are going to run the test in parallel, you'll need additional code for synchronizing between different threads, but this is another much more complex topic. And I believe this is even more readable. Sometimes I prefer to use this approach. It's up to you. This is why I showed you 3 variations of it. I hope that it was useful. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, you can check Lambda Test blog and the support. You can check the community. Also, there are a few really good articles on the Lambda Test blog about this. Also, don't forget to get the certification about Selenium visiting this URL here. And thank you for watching and see you soon.